Hi, everyone. So today I'm going to be answering more questions about the affidavit of support. You all have so many questions about this, and people get confused about, how much money do I need to make? What if my spouse is not working? What if the person that's filing for me is currently not working? Can I even get a green card without a sponsor? So let's talk about it. Okay, let's talk about it. So, the first thing I want to let you know is that when you are filing for your green card through family, you're going to need an affidavit of support. Okay, that's just what it is. You're going to need an affidavit of support, and you want to know if you have enough money, then you can clearly go ahead, sponsor your family member. But what happens if you do not have enough money, right? What can you do if you do not have enough money to then be able to still sponsor your family member? So I'm going to break that down in this video because I've been getting this question a lot. So let's start with, can your family member file for you even if they are not working? And the answer to this is yes, if they have another way to make up the fact that they are not earning income. Okay, so they're supposed to show that they can provide for you, for their households. But if they're not working, they need to have another way of showing that they have enough money to support you and themselves and their entire household if they have children or other family members living with them. All right. So it's really important that you know that, right? The fact that someone is not working does not make them ineligible to file for a family member. Okay. They can still file, but there's just certain requirements they have to meet in order to complete that process, whether they are filing for a green card inside the US or an immigrant visa at an embassy. Okay. So, how do you actually meet the requirements, right? So if you don't have income, you need to either have someone else that has enough income and is willing to sponsor your family. I did a video a couple weeks ago on the rights, the responsibilities of a sponsor. So if the person is willing to take on that responsibility and be a sponsor, then you need to pay attention to that. So if they're willing to be a sponsor and they have enough income, okay, they're willing to be a sponsor and they have enough income, well, guess what? Your income no longer matters. Whether you make enough money no longer matters. You still have to file an affidavit of support, right? You, as the US citizen or permanent resident filing for the family member, still has to file an affidavit of support, the I-864. But if you have a joint sponsor, they also will file an I-864 saying that they're willing to sponsor your family member. And that's enough. As long as their income meets the requirements, that is enough for you to still sponsor the person, even though you yourself do not have enough income. Okay. So it's really important that you don't give up just because you're not working or your spouse that's supposed to be filing for you is not currently working. You can have someone else sponsor you. The person does have to be a permanent resident or a US citizen, but they can sponsor you. All right. If the person being filed for is in the US and is in lawful status and are working and filing their tax returns, guess what? Their income can also be used to meet the requirement. All right. So even if the US citizen is not working, if the person they're filing for is working and does have income that meets the income threshold that USCIS has, their income can be used to meet the income requirement. So again, we're trying to find ways that you can still sponsor family, even though you may not have the income. Okay, we talked about the joint sponsor, and then also the person you're filing for, their income can be included if they are legally allowed to work in the US. Okay, they must have a work permit or a visa that allows them to work in the US. If they do not have either of these things, their income cannot be counted. Okay, want to make that clear. Their income cannot be counted unless they have legal ability to work in the US. The third way that you can make up this difference is if you have a household member that has enough income. So maybe they're not doing a full affidavit of support, but they live with you, they are working, they have the money. So for example, if you're living with your family members, your parents, your siblings, their income can be included as a household member. Okay. And that would be okay. That's the third way. All right. Joint sponsor, the income of the person you're filing for, and then a household member that's willing to include their income as well. And then finally, you have assets. I have a whole video where I break down how you can use assets to basically make up the difference. All right. If you do not have income, but you have assets that are 3 times, right? Your assets must be worth 3 times what the amount USCIS is looking for your household size. All right. So if your assets meet that requirement, you need to provide documentation of it. And when it comes to your property, the home you live in or the car you drive, you want to look at the value of it, not just the what it may be worth, but how much equity do you have in it? So if you have a loan on it, if you have a mortgage on it, you're really taking the difference between the value of the property and the amount you still owe on it, and that's your equity. So how do you show this? You will show property records. Sometimes your city will actually have records showing what they value your property at, like how much they think your property is worth, and they're going to tax you on it. So you can use those records. You can also do a formal appraisal of your property and use those. And finally, when all else fails, if you're not able to get the appraisal or your city does not have those property valuations, then Zillow may be an option for you. I typically suggest that people use the city valuation or do a formal appraisal just to avoid any issues of an officer saying that a Zillow valuation is not enough. But you want to provide proof that the value that you're saying that your property is worth is actually something that can be backed up by data. Okay, so it's not just you saying my property is worth 500,000 and I owe 200,000 on it. They want to see documentation of that. They want to see your latest mortgage statement saying how much you actually still owe on the property, and then they want to see some form of valuation of the property. Okay, if you want to use a car, remember, if you only have one car, that is not an asset. Okay, you must have one, you must have more than one car for it to count as an asset. All right, so the car, that you can pick which car you want to use as the asset, but you have to show the value of the car, and if you have any loans on it, what the current loan amount is. So this stuff is really important when you're thinking about if you don't make enough money, right? If you are not working, if you are not, getting income, or your income reduced, what can you do to make sure that you can still petition for your family and still sponsor them? Well, you can get a joint sponsor. You can use the person's income that you're filing for if they are legally allowed to work in the US. You can use a household member's income. So if you live with your parents, your siblings, you can also use their income to make up the difference. And if you have assets, you can use those assets. And then the final way is you can use the assets of the person that you're sponsoring to make up the difference as well. So the same rules apply: 3 times the value, 3 times the amount that USCIS requires for your household size is the needs to be the value of the assets. But you can now use the person you're filing for, if they have property, if they have stocks and bonds and all of those things. Well, guess what? You can use that as well as using your own assets. Okay. So this is the only place where you can use that person's assets. Even if they do not have legal status in the US, they are not legally allowed to work in the US because their assets is their assets, right? But when it comes to earning money from a job, they have to have legal status in the US for you to use that income. But when it comes to their assets, they do not need legal status in the US or a work permit in the US for you to use their assets to make up for the fact that you, the supporter, the sponsor, the petitioner, do not have enough income. So I really wanted to break that down because I have been getting so many questions about this, and people being scared that if their family member that they're filing for, or the family member that's filing for them, do not have enough income, right? Or they do not work, how is that going to reflect on them when they go to file? The only place that their lack of work applies to you is if they do not, if they do not have another way to make up that income difference, right? If they don't have assets or other people that can include their income and assets. All right. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. I'm more than happy to respond to that. And if you are watching this on a replay and you have questions, please go ahead and put them in the comments as well. I do go back and watch and answer your questions. And sometimes it prompts me to do this video because sometimes you have similar questions on the same topic, and I try to answer all of them in one video. All right. Question: as an F1 visa holder, how can I change my status? Because my F1 expires soon. It depends what you want to change your status to. So that's what it's going to that's going to be my answer. Is it depends. If you're trying to change your status to another non-immigrant visa, you need to qualify for that non-immigrant status and file a change of status with USCIS. If you are trying to go from student to a green card through family, you would need to file for adjustment of status. And again, it just depends on what status you're trying to get. It depends on if you have another avenue to change your status. So you would need something else, or you would need to, you can also, if you have, let's say you got your bachelor's degree and you also want to get your master's, you can continue on your F1 visa by talking to your school and getting into a master's program. So the status basically expires once you're no longer meeting the requirements of student status. So depends on what you mean by your status expires soon. Maybe you are graduating and not looking to, continue another program. So in those situations, you do get a 60-day grace period to kind of leave the US. But if you need to change your status, you need to know what you're changing your status to. And if that grace period is ending soon, you need to make a decision on what you're doing pretty quickly. All right. I typically suggest, if you're in that situation and you're not sure, please schedule a consultation so that you can actually see what options are available to you and make an informed decision, okay? Because it's really important that you don't leave it till last minute and not know what options are available to you. All right. So if anyone else has questions, please put it put them in the comments. And if you are joining me and you are thinking that you may need a consultation with me, you may need to talk to me and see what you qualify for. If you have, enough assets, enough income from other people to make up the difference, feel free to schedule a strategy session with me. You can do that by going to my website, lilylegal.com, and clicking on contact us. And you can actually pick a date and time that works best for you right on my website. You can also call my office at 508-443-1788. And I don't think I even introduced myself in this video, but if you do not know me, I am U.S. immigration attorney Lillian Chukura, and I help my clients get green cards and citizenships for themselves and their families using the U.S. immigration law system. So I do not see any other questions. So thank you all so much for joining me. Remember, if you have questions, put them in the comments. And if you're watching this on Instagram and you're not able to ask me questions, please feel free to DM me or go on my Facebook or YouTube page. It's all Lily Legal, and you can leave your comments there as well. So thank y'all so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your Friday, a great weekend, and I'll see you next time. Bye.